Okay, part 5. Lunch meeting. Lostbaum returned to the estate by carriage and announced that we were to take lunch in the castle. Lazletta had already known. She had received advance notice via an ordonnance, so the seamstresses had already taken their leave and everything was ready for our departure. Hannelore and I climbed into our carriage with our respective guard knights. So, how should we get... Oh no! I'm really bringing this up right now. Convince Lord Ferdinand to agree to this political marriage, Hannelore asked with a straight face. How she said that with a straight face is beyond me. I mean, Rosemine could never say that. She'd be like, what? Never, they wouldn't believe her. My knowledge of the man comes entirely from the tales Heifetz and the others have told me, so no ideas come to mind. Would demanding some proposal challenges from Lord Ferdinand and completing them not work? Yeah, we don't need you to go Clarissa on him. She wouldn't even be able to do that anyway, because she tried that one time with the fan right before, Georgine left, and she swatted Wilfrid with it, and he easily caught it without even knowing what the frick it was. So, yeah, it ain't happening. Yeah, the last thing I wanted was to go all Clarissa on Ferdinand. I doubted that such an approach would even work on him. He would surely smirk and refuse to give me any challenges at all. Or try and give you something that would be impossible for you to do. Probably. Rather than try to bully him into a marriage he would never ever want, I was resolved to secure him a laboratory in Ehrenfest, his Geduld. Would he want an Ehrenfest or would he want an Ehrensbach? Because technically you are the Ehrensbach on paper. All you have to do is get the king's approval, and Ferdinand would keep an eye on things until you come of age. Once this whole thing with Detlinde and everything is completed anyway, I mean. So, Rosemine is actually okay with this? I guess, it's... Excuse me. It's better than, I guess, whatever alternatives Hannelore was probably thinking of. I'll need to consult him about it before these loons descend on him. If anyone was going to take action, it was going to be at lunch when the Archducal couple was expected to be in attendance. I needed to leak Hannelore's scheme to Ferdinand and then work with him to devise unbeatable countermeasures. Otherwise, he was going to be pushed into a second political marriage by the same people who had brought about his first. However, at the very least, his potential marriage partner is a whole heck of a lot better than Detlinde. And it's someone he actually, cares about in some capacity. So at least it'd be better, a better outcome, I should say. Hannelore must already have forgotten my remark that she and her duchy should stay in their lane. Yeah, don't get involved. Fear not, Ferdinand. You can count on me to fight your corner. Lenore, send word to Ferdinand, I said. I wish to speak with him before lunch. It was a request one would normally make of one's attendance, but for reasons of status, Lazletta wasn't with me. As you will, Lenore replied, but is this not too sudden? If you tell him the circumstances are dire, I am sure he will make time for me. As much as he frowned and shook his head about it, Ferdinand always made time to listen to whatever was bothering me and help me work through it. This particular disaster risked changing both our lives, so I doubted he would mind me sharing this intelligence with him. Ferdinand! He had made time for me, as expected, and prepared a room close to the dining hall where our lunch meeting was being held. I'd arrived to find not only him and his retinue, but also my male retainers and Clarissa. Well, of course, because you can't really be alone with another man until this whole thing is settled. Who was advising on how to host our guests. So, Rosemont, what are these dire circumstances, quote-unquote, Ferdinand asked. His brow knit in its usual tight frown. Dare I ask what you have done this time? It wasn't me. It wasn't something I did, but this really is serious. You're going to be forced into a political... Something's going to interrupt this. Calm down, you are far too energetic, and you look rather unwell. Ferdinand reached out to check my temperature, but I grabbed his hand and squeezed it tight. At this rate, you might be forced to marry me! Run! Run away! Oh my god! Did you really expect him to actually listen and run away? He'd be very confused. Very confused. I do not understand a word of what you are telling me. Explain everything that led to your coming here, but not before I activate a sound blocker. I imagine this is not something to be discussed openly. Ferdinand grimaced and waved his free hand, prompting Hartman to activate an area-wide sound blocker. Just as having finished preparing tea, then instructed the gathered retainers to step outside the sound blocker's radius. The fact we were using this magic tool showed just how considerate my retainers were. They knew I wasn't in any state to hold a face stone. Good, thank you. Now, why the melancholic smile? Ferdinand asked. I am sad to have troubled my retainers, but also touched that they would do so much for me. I see, they surely want the burden on you to be as light as can be, so make your explanation quick if you would. I watched my retainers have their own conversations out of the corner of my eye as I explained the events of the fitting. First, I went into Handler and the others, misunderstanding that I was in love with him and the immense amount of support they had thrown behind the idea. Someone's actually commented in my last video that she actually is in love with Ferdinand because she's never had, any kind of romance or anything in her own life back in Japan or now. She probably doesn't realize it, which actually does kind of make sense. But we won't find out until probably the last book or the book before that. Then, I dropped the bomb. Their conclusion that we should enter a political marriage. I told them my true desires, I said, but when I mentioned that I didn't want any unnecessary burdens, Lady Handler and my retainers all started insisting we get married. They changed their stance in a heartbeat. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, does it? Oh my god, he actually agrees? No, it makes perfect sense if you ask me. They foresaw the disaster that would come from you having unchecked power and decided that you would need someone to control it for you. I don't think he's quite agreeing with them, but he does see the benefits of what they're talking about. It's just not a love thing, it's more to keep the gremlin under control. Rather than openly agreeing with me, Ferdinand seemed exhausted. Why it makes sense considering all that's happened in the past couple days. Or past, 4 days? He noted that I was the only one who didn't understand the situation, and then launched into a lecture glaring at me all the while. Their exasperation about your library scheme must have contributed, but even putting that aside, every single person who heard your remarks deduced that they were dangerous. Do you not know why the country gates were placed outside the borders? Why teleporters to the Royal Academy all connect to their respective duchies' dormitories? Is it not clear why their activation requires the OB, or why they can only transport a few people at once, despite how many students need to use it each year? If you had stopped to think for even a moment, you would have realized that Ascendance adding teleporters to libraries and placing them wherever she pleased would absolutely devastate Duchy security. Even if you had the best intentions, someone would eventually decide to exploit every weakness you created. It should come as no surprise that an Archduke candidate from Dunkelfelder, especially one learned in her duchy's long history, would start to be wary. Fool, of course. Well, I don't know why Handler didn't mention that. Why didn't Handler tell her this? Because surely if she is actually as knowledgeable as Ferdinand is saying she is, why didn't she just tell her this? Because surely her hearing it from someone her age might actually get her to listen better than just Ferdinand telling her this. Or maybe not, who knows. I assumed Ferdinand was exhausted because I was so clearly in the right that discussing the matter was a waste of time, but I couldn't have been more mistaken. His scolding came so suddenly that the most I could do was blurt out random excuses. I was just listing my desires as they came to me, but it wasn't like I expected them to come true. My main focus was distracting everyone from thinking I was in love with you. Did you not declare that marrying Prince Tituswell will make your goal easy to achieve? Even if you said it without thinking, as you are wont to do. Yeah, as she does that a lot. Lady Handler immediately understood the risk of your dreams coming true. The teleportation circles aside, I am sure her mind wandered to all the other bizarre claims you decided to make as they came to you. I managed only a small peep in response. Not thinking things through had produced truly dire consequences in the past. Yeah. Oh, the agony. I cultivated the entire ideal reputation for you, a perfect Archduke candidate shrouded in the divinity of sainthood, and you cast it all aside for the most foolish reasons. I cannot say I ever expected my hard work to evaporate quite like that. Were all those reminders during the feast not enough for you to know the importance of maintaining appearances? It came up so regularly that I started to drown it out. You can only hear the same warning so many times before it starts to wear on you. I would call you a fool, but the word no longer feels strong enough, Ferdinand muttered. He sounded as bitter as ever, but was this really the time to bemoan the subtleties of an insult? Surely our battle plan was what mattered most right now. My reputation aside, I said, unless we take action before Lady Handler and the others begin their rampage, their rampage for once, I suspect you will again be dragged away from your Geduld. I can try to convince Sylvester to build you a laboratory here at Ehrenfest, so let us start planning now. Ow, 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 ow! You have brought me such excellent intelligence, Ferdinand said. He had pinched my cheek and pulled to stop me from speaking. For that, I thank you. You sure seem thankful, I shot back, rubbing my aching cheek and glaring at him. Ferdinand cast a glance at the door, so I did the same. Angelica, whom I'd stationed outside the room, was poking her head in to get our attention. It must be lunchtime, Ferdinand remarked. Listen to me, Ferdinand. You have devoted so much of your life to that promise you made. Going forward, I ask that you focus on your own dreams. No matter what Sylvester, Lady Handler, or anyone else says, do not surrender. Do everything in your power to secure the future you desire. Yes. That he desires. Not for everybody else, not for his father. His desires. I clenched my fists, wanting to hammer home my determination and support. If we could survive this lunch, the Dunkelfelgerians would return home. Ferdinand stood up and extended a hand to me. Fear not, I do not start fights I cannot win. Spread across his lips was the same smile he always wore when devising evil schemes. And at once I was convinced that I could leave things in his hands. It warmed my heart to see him so motivated. Aww. I like when he smiles like that, because at least we know he's not faking the smile. He's not upset. He's plotting, and I think he likes to plot. I think. I could be completely wrong, but I think he kind of enjoys it. Do you think so? I was exceptionally wary of everything Handler said and did, but our lunch meeting was going smoothly nonetheless. She had rejoiced over the exceptionally elaborate dishes our Dutchy chefs had served, and the other Dunkelfelgerians seemed satisfied as well. One topic of conversation that dominated our meal together was how thoroughly Dunkelfelger's knights had crushed Ehrenfest while sparring. Wilfried spoke at length about the immense strength he had witnessed, having been smacked down with the rest of his peers, of course, so he took part as well, huh? From there, we discussed what we were going to do when lunch was over. I wanted to check on the temple, whereas Handler had arranged to have tea with Florencia, Wilfried, and Charlotte. It would have been nice to tour Ehrenfest's famed temple and see what makes it stand out from all the others in Jurgensmith, but given the lack of time, I suppose there's something we can do, Handler said, her voice tinged with regret. If she had been able to use her high beast, she would have just enough time to visit before she needed to return home, but by carriage, she had no chance at all. I would have liked to show you around had that been an option, I replied. It was unfortunate, but there was no point trying to force the issue. Ferdinand had already told us that there wouldn't be enough time, and Melkor, who had spent his entire morning vigorously removing traps, was adamant that it still wasn't safe to welcome guests. Uncle, are you going to the temple with Rosamund and Melkor? Wilfried asked. Yes, that is my intention. I must ensure that Rosamund returns to the castle in time, and as some of my former attendants are in the temple, I do not foresee any issues with my being there. Dunkelfelger's knights were calling for you to train with them. I worry this will mean leaving them empty-handed. Ferdinand glanced at Sylvester and smiled. I am told the Op has not had much time to express his appreciation, despite that being the reason our guests came here in the first place. Would this not be an excellent opportunity to remedy that? As thoughtful as always, Sylvester replied, his smile twitching. He's telling you go entertain them. Ever so slightly, we finished our food not long after, and our post-meal tea was brought in. Speaking of which, Ob Ehrenfest, what is the status of the sovereignty? We have received no updates whatsoever, so I wondered if you knew anything. It made sense that they were starved for information. I would sit out in the dead of the night, fought until sunrise, slept for 2 days after taking Ahrensbach's foundation, and made my return to Ehrenfest while unable to use the magic tool meant for contacting the sovereignty. Handel returned to Sylvester, no doubt curious as well. My father was still in Dunkelfelger when I sent word that we were bringing our knights to Ehrenfest. My understanding of the sovereignty situation is about as limited as yours, Sylvester replied. To my knowledge, it was 2 days ago when Hartman and Clarissa's letter arrived there through the Royal Academy's knights. Sylvester had informed the royal family that we had rescued Ferdinand and that we were engaged in large-scale battle with Lonzanov. It hadn't been particularly urgent news, so he hadn't used a more direct means of communication. And the royal family's response, I asked? The Sovereign Knights Order reinforced their guard, but no one from Ahrensbach or Lonzanov came. In the end, they asked us when the enemy was due to arrive, whether the sovereignty was being targeted in the first place, And when it would be best to contact Dunkelfelder? That lackadaisical response had arrived yesterday morning when we were busy defending our duchy's foundation. Sylvester had neglected to send anything back, since it hadn't been all that high on our list of priorities at the time. I understood the feeling all too well. How was I meant to know any of that anyway, Sylvester continued. Since the sovereignty doesn't seem to be in any danger, I figured it could wait for when you got back. Do you have any answers for them? If our enemies are seeking the Grucheshite, then Lindy's group should be not in the sovereignty proper where the royal palace is located, but in the royal academy, Ferdinand replied dryly. Sylvester's expression changed. Send word at once, he said, rising to his feet. But Ferdinand raised a hand to stop him. Be at ease. Those of the royal family are safest tucked away in their sovereign villas. As long as the invaders do not obtain the Grucheshite, that arrangement will produce the fewest casualties. Though he was being indirect, I understood Ferdinand loud and clear. Don't cause trouble by saying things better left unsaid. He gestured to Justice and stood up. Get in touch with Professor Herscher and gather information about the Royal Academy's current state. Our status. Ahrensbach is in a unique position. Its dormitory is closed, and it remains without a dormitory supervisor, as a replacement will not be assigned until the Archduke Conference. I would advise that you also send word to Dunkelfelder, update them on the royal family situation, and arrange for Professor Broffin to search the Royal Academy. The sovereignty was quiet, which meant Lindy's group must have been up to something at the Royal Academy. Perhaps they were circling the shrines and praying in order to secure the Grucheshite? As far as we know... Dang it, what was his name? Gervasio, the king of Lanzenov or whatever? Yeah, he's in the library at the moment, and that will get to Rosemine when she finds this out. Rosemine, Melkor, we do not have much time, Ferdinand said. Let us depart for the temple at once. Melkor and I stood and our retainer sprang into action. We don't have much time, I echoed. I'm not sure I understand. Shouldn't we be heading to the Royal Academy? The dormitory supervisors have yet to contact us, and it is unlikely that anything will occur at such short notice. And then there are the various preparations that will need to be made before our departure. More than any of that, though, have you forgotten that visiting the temple in the lower city was our reason for making this trip in the first place? The royal family can wait. At once, my thoughts turned to those still at the Royal Academy. Raymond and Professor Herscher rarely leave their lab, so I can't imagine they'll cross paths with Lady Detlindy's group. I hope not. If our enemies want the Grucheshite, where would they be most likely to go? I was about to leave the room when I stopped in my tracks and turned around. Sylvester, please confirm that Professor Solange is safe in the Royal Academy's library. I'm concerned about her. Sylvester seemed to understand my hidden message and assured me he would contact Herscher and Dunkelfelder without delay. Because he knew that the entrance to a duchy's foundation was its temple's bookroom, it must have been easy for him to deduce that the Royal Academy's library was important as well. Everyone moved to the balcony and produced their high beats, but I stood rooted to the spot. I couldn't bear to touch my face down. Ferdinand, ride with Angelica. Right. Angelica, if you would. I climbed onto my knight's high beast, and together we headed to the temple. Oh, now that I think about it, I wouldn't be able to survive as an Oberlizent. My new fear meant I couldn't brew, send ordinances, or ride my own high beast. It was the death knell of any decent noble. Well, I probably shouldn't stress about it. I can't imagine that this kind of problem that clears up right away. Yeah, it's probably going to be a bit before you can even do that stuff again. That said, I would soon be returning to Ahrensbach, and the duchy was in desperate need of an ob. Would I really be able to meet everyone's expectations? My fingertips went cold as a deep sense of unease started to spread through me. The temple and Melkor's report. Welcome back, Lady Rosemine and Lord Ferdinand. We are glad to have this opportunity to see you once again. I, too, am glad you all remain in good health. Fran and Zom have greeted us with the other Grey Priests, which had brought a slight smile to the lips of our usually stoic Ferdinand. He was clearly nostalgic for the temple. It was one of the few places he could truly feel at ease. Time may be of the essence, but we have come to check on the temple and orphanage and confirm that everyone is safe, I said. Please tell me what you know in my chambers. Sister, I have already told the Ob everything I know about the attack, but would you like a report anyway? Melkor asked. Father saw Lady Georgine's memories, he said. I was summoned and told about them this morning while we were disarming traps. Oh, good, we need to know that. I would, thank you. I'd come to the temple precisely because I wanted information, and refusing a report wouldn't have made any sense at all. Melkor said that he would meet me in the High Bishop's chambers once he put on his robes and took his leave. Ferdinand wouldn't be able to enter my chambers while my retainers were helping me get changed, so he visited the High Priest's chambers with Hartman for the first time in quite a while. His former attendants would surely rejoice to see him again. Did nothing happen in the High Bishop's chambers? I asked. I heard that someone in the temple was working with Lady Georgine. We were all safe. Lady Feline and Lord Roderick were with us. I see, that's good to know. Once I've observed the temple and heard its reports, I intend to head into the lower city. Monica, Nicola, there are going to be a lot of guests, so you will need to prepare plenty of tea. The two girls exchanged glances and then giggled. I'd essentially told them they could skip on dressing me properly, to a reasonable extent, of course, if other duties were demanding of their time. I don't imagine there'll be much for us to do, Monica said. Fran and Zom have been working exceptionally hard ever since they learned that Lord Ferdinand will be visiting. I will inform the others once we are done, Lady Rosemine, Nicola added. Monica exited the High Bishop's chambers, and Nicola went to the kitchen, at which point Fran and Zom entered with a fully equipped tea trolley. They looked faintly tense, but also excited as much as they tried to hide it. Ferdinand's old attendants really do love him, don't they? Oh, they do. From there, Monica summoned everyone to the High Bishop's chambers. I gestured to the seats in front of me, urging Melkor and Ferdinand to take them, then took a drink of the tea Fran had prepared us. Melkor and Ferdinand picked up their own cups in response. How nostalgic, Ferdinand said. Once he was also taking a sip. He had gone without Fran's tea for a very long time, so he must have been relishing the taste. I turned my attention to Melkor, who I thought looked exceptionally tired. Well, of course. We'd seen each other at lunch, but he'd been seated so far away that I simply hadn't noticed the bags under his eyes. Oh, poor thing. Fran brews the most delicious tea, does he not? I asked. Has it helped to ease your exhaustion? Yes, sister, it was delicious. Father gave me something for the soldiers who fought valiantly at the West Gate. Might we head there together? The soldiers know you better than they do me, so Father said it was best if we both went. We were handing out rewards already? That was an unusually quick turnaround. Had Sylvester gone out of his way to prepare everything early so that I would still have a chance to meet with my dad? Yep, most likely. But of course, I said, let us go together. You will see the soldiers on a regular basis when you start visiting Haas's monastery. This seems like a good opportunity for you all to interact before then. I'd already introduced Melkor to the soldiers, but the more chances they had to touch base, the better. I moved to address my retainers. Daniel, Matthias, circle the lower city and gather together everyone who fought at the West Gate. I wish to give them something from the Ob. Collect as much intelligence as you can in the process. Understood, they replied. It was the day after the attack, so many of the soldiers who had taken part in the fighting were probably still resting at home. If we didn't gather them all together, some of them would miss out on the reward. Daniel would know whom to seek out since he had fought alongside them. Lorenz, check on the apprentice blue priests, starting with Bertram. Angelica, could you do the same for the apprentice blue shrine maidens? As you wish. Angelica was far from the best person for this job, but sending her out was the most logical choice. Judith, Feline, and Roderick had traveled all over while defending the temples, which meant they had most likely already heard what Melkor had to say. Melkor, I said, please tell me about the attack on the temple. You can skip over everything that was mentioned during the feast. There was someone on the inside assisting Lady Georgine, was there not? Were there any children of the former Veronica faction involved? That was all a misunderstanding. The blue priest in question was Krepek, but he was not working with her. I cocked my head, having recognized the name, but not much else. Most of my interactions with the blue priest happened in the high priest's room, or when we gathered in prayer. Krepek wasn't all too good at paperwork, and he didn't have as much mana as Camphor or Freetik, so we never had reason to speak with one another. As I recall, the previous high bishop mostly ignored Krepek, Ferdinand interjected. The man was from a men-noble family more aligned with the Lies gang, so I find it hard to believe he was connected to Georgine. He gave his temple a few inquisitive taps, his expression so severe that Melkor actually recoiled a little. Oh, right, Melkor took over from Hartmut. He never knew Ferdinand when he was the high priest. I was feeling bad for Melkor, who was faced with the daunting task of reporting to Ferdinand, so I decided to give him an escape route. Melkor, if you'd rather your retainers give this report, nobody will take issue. This burden must be too much for someone of your young age. He looked over his shoulder at his retainer, who gave a reassuring nod. That must have been the strength to encourage Melkor as he turned around again and I continued on his own. By looking through her memories, Father learned that Lady Georgine came to Arenfest on an earlier ship than the one that started the fight at the West Gate. Georgine had avoided the West Gate entirely and instead made her way into the lower city through its waterway. She had met with those who attacked the North Gate and used the waterway again to gain access to the temple. She's surprisingly tenacious, huh? And aggressive. I never would have been able to do any of that. Still, something about Melkor's story confused me. I don't doubt what you're telling me, not when Sylvester looked through her memory, but how did she know about the waterway we made? She was in another duchy. Like magic contracts, end-to-account schematics disappear after use, Ferdinand said, beginning his explanation. This was problematic for future obs, however, so copies were made and archived. As I understand it, most of the people involved in the waterway schematics were later removed during the purge. But of course, our end-to-account happened prior to that, when we did not know who had given their name to her. He paused and muttered, I did not think a thoroughbred noble such as Georgine would actually take such an approach. It was clear to us all that she had intended to do absolutely anything to steal our foundation. As it stood, Georgine should not have had any noble supporters left in Arenfest, Ferdinand continued. Yet she still managed to create and execute a plan of such outstanding complexity. If only she had put her into intellect, ambition, and expertise, towards some other purpose. Her skills were wasted on revenge. I know! She could have easily put her skills into becoming Ob Ahrensbach, for example. She could have made it the best place and then proven that she was fit to be an Ob, essentially. But no! No! She wanted revenge! And she wasted that talent, essentially. Indeed, I said, empathizing with his every word. If she had devoted her talents... Girl, she's not going to care about that. To my library scheme, for example, Ehrenfest and Ahrensbach would already be transformed. It really is a shame that so much potential went to waste. Ferdinand gave me a repudiating look. I see. On second thought, I suppose revenge is but one of many ways a person can waste their life. I should not be so quick to judge. What do you mean by that? Exactly what I said. I was debating how to fire back when Melkor said, may I continue? His eyes were darting between Ferdinand and me, so we responded in turn, you may. Of course, my dear little brother. Georgine had arrived at the temple before the battle at the West Gate had even begun. She'd emerged near the orphanage at a time when none of the orphans or grey priests had been around, and then moved to the noble section of the temple. The west basement entrance hadn't been locked. Some of the servants for whom it was meant had actively been using it. The order to evacuate had already been given by the time Lady Georgine reached the temple, Melkor told us. The attendants and servants stopped using the second floor when everyone was hiding, but carried out their usual duties on the first floor and in the basement until the attack on the west gate. Because of the extra nights keeping watch, the attendants and personal chefs had needed to continue preparing food. People needed to eat even during an evacuation, and a servant ordered to fetch provisions had no choice but to obey. Lady Georgine took advantage of the unlocked door and stole the robes of a grey shrine maiden who happened to be leaving at that moment, Melkor continued. Ferdinand shot me a glance, then requested that the details of the theft be omitted. I clenched my fist in response. The shrine maiden must have been killed in the process. Oh. Ooh. Was the grey shrine maiden whose robes were stolen one of Krepek's attendants, I asked. No, she was Camphor's. Georgine had put the stolen grey robes on over her silver clothes, nonchalantly entered the basement through its west entrance, and climbed to the first floor via the nearest staircase. She then stole away in Krepek's room, but only because it was closest to the bookroom, Melkor noted. Georgine had passed the kitchen in the basement of the temple's noble section and ascended to the first floor where the attendants' rooms were located. These rooms were connected to the Blue Priest chambers via stairs to make it easier for the attendants using them to carry out their duties. According to Melkor, that was how Georgine had to gain access to Krepek's room, whereupon she had slaughtered everyone inside. Oh. That sucks. So people did die! Just not anybody that we knew, essentially. Lady Georgine waited patiently as the fighting started at the temple gate. Then she listened out for the inevitable clatter in the bookroom, deducing which traps her body double had fallen into by the cheers of my knights. Father told us she even heard them rejoice that our teleporter to the ivory tower had worked as anticipated. Once the footfalls and voices had receded, Georgine had used her silver clothes to pass through the bookroom's barrier. She had then avoided the remaining traps by combining what she had overheard with what she could see. The gloves and shoes stuck to the floor had made it clear where the glue was, and the heap of clothes that had once belonged to her body double had marked the location of our concealed teleportation circles. Oh, that sucks. Georgine had pulled a long string of some kind, allowing her to remove her silver clothes from under her grey robes, then place them on the floor so that she could safely amble over the circle. Thank you for your report, Ferdinand interjected. Sylvester had already explained what she had done from there. It's my fault that Krepek, his retainers, and Camphor's attendant died, Melkor began in a whisper, slowly shaking his head. If only I'd stationed guards at the bookroom after the impostor was teleported away. If only I'd evacuated the servants more thoroughly or considered the waterway as a potential weak point. I made such a horrid, unforgivable mess of things. No, you did not. You had no idea that was going to happen. You can only account for so much. No matter how we tried to hide it, any one of us could see that Melkor was exhausted. He looked so sleep-deprived that he must have had the same kind of night as Hannelore and me. Your guard might not have been perfect, but you are not to blame for those deaths, I said. Lady Georgine was the one who killed them. You must not forget that. But, sister, would you like to mourn the dead with a prayer? I gave one with Lady Hannelore at dawn. I dedicated mine to all those who died in Ehrenfest, so it should already have reached the temple, but another prayer could not hurt. I stood and knelt in front of the small shrine in the High Bishop's chambers. Let us pray for Krepek and the attendants who lost their lives. Melkor stood as well, though his legs wavered. He must be that tired, dang. Poor kid. He accepted a face stone from his retainer and squeezed it with both hands while kneeling beside me. It wasn't long before Judith, Feline, Roderick, and Melkor's retainers were all in a row behind us. Fran and the temple attendants then formed a second row behind them. Everyone here must have seen the fighting in the temple. For a gathering this large, it must have been a better idea to move to the chapel. Or it might have been a better idea to move to the chapel. The small shrine meant we were all rather cramped, but it made sense to pray now while everyone's feelings were most sincere. I formed my staff, which prompted everyone else who had one to follow suit. Almighty King and Queen of the endless skies, may our prayers reach those climbing to the towering heights. We perform our song of mourning so that you might protect those who can no longer return to us. Black and golden lights swirled together as they headed up into the air and through the ceiling. I could feel mana flowing from Melkor's ring and the face stone in his hands. Sister, giving my mana has put me so much more at ease, Melkor said when we were done. He looked nowhere near as tense as before. Would you like to come to the orphanage with me, I replied. Remembering those we have lost is important, but so is recognizing everyone you were able to protect. I stood up and gave Monica an order to warn the orphanage of our visit. She opened the door just as Lorenz and Angelica leaped into the room. What's going on, Lorenz explained. We saw the lights of a blessing appear out of nowhere. Are we under attack, Angelica cried. The fact she had arrived at the same time as Lorenz, despite having been on the third floor, said everything one needed to know about her speed. Dang. The way she was looking around the room, obviously on guard, reminded me of our exchange with Ferdinand this morning. No, Angelica, I said, unable to suppress a chuckle. We were just praying in mourning of everyone who died in the temple. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ferdinand grimace slightly. You are headed to the orphanage, are you not? He asked. If you do not leave now, there will not be enough time for you to visit the West Gate. Right. We made our way down the hall to the orphanage where Wilma, the Great Shrine Maiden, and the underage children were already kneeling in anticipation of our arrival. Wilma greeted us as their representative. Welcome, Lady Rosemine, Lord Melkor. I am glad to see you all safe, I said. Wilma gave me a peaceful smile. Lady Feline and Lady Judith's warning allowed us to evacuate quickly. On top of that, Lord Melkor and your knights swiftly replaced the guards, so we made it through the fight without experiencing any of the violence. She and the others had remained in their designated safe spots for an entire bell. Staying there had made them hungry and a little claustrophobic, but it hadn't been a scary experience for them at least. I see. That is wonderful to hear. Lady Rose, my Lord Melkor, and your retainers, we thank you all ever so much. It is because of you that we may continue with our everyday lives while the noble section of the temple remains so busy. Wilma's words of gratitude seemed to comfort Melkor and his retainers who had worked the hardest of us all. Judith and Feline had proud smiles spread across their faces. Judith, Feline, Roderick, you all did so much to protect the temple, Wilma continued. Fran, the other attendants, and everyone in the orphanage are safe because of you. We thank you ever so much. By the time we departed, Melkor's tense expression was gone, replaced with a pleasant smile. I am so pleased we were able to protect everyone in the orphanage, he said. It comforts me to think that not everything I did was bad. Well, of course it's not. Shall we go to the West Gate, I asked. Let us praise the soldiers who defended the city with you. Right. Melkor exclaimed with a firm nod, then instructed his retainer to fetch the rewards. It was good to see him more energized again. Have you been praying non-stop since last night? Ferdinand asked me. Obviously not. That was my only my second one. He gave me an exasperated sigh. Excuse me? That wasn't a good sigh, was it? It can wait. Melkor is ready. Let us go to the lower city. What the fuck is he talking about? Why is it not good that she wasn't praying constantly? What the... Dude! Did you not forget that, it's not a good thing for her to be riding on the high beast with you? Ferdinand grabbed my hand, and in the blink of an eye, we were riding atop his ivory lion. He took to the sky and started flying to the West Gate without saying a word to anyone. I turned around, not quite able to flail or cause a fuss. Ferdinand, what about my reputation? Because, we had the same issue before. Did you not say it was so troublesome that you wished to cast it aside entirely? I did, but how is this going to impact the others? In the past, my retainers had gone to such great lengths to keep me from riding with Ferdinand, but now they weren't saying anything at all. Their silence was very mysterious, but we arrived at the West Gate before I could figure out the reason for it. Damiel, Matthias, and the soldiers were all waiting atop one of the gate posts. Dad was among those kneeling. Whoop whoop! Okay, let's see. I'm almost halfway done with the book. Finally! This book seems like it's longer than usual. Or maybe there's just more chapters? I don't know. The West Gate and groundwork. Welcome, Lady Rosemine, Lord Melkor, Damiel said, greeting us together with Matthias. Everyone you see here took part in the battle at the West Gate. I cast my eye over the gathered soldiers while Ferdinand helped me dismount from his high beast. They were kneeling before us, their heads lowered. Daniel had told me that no one was gravely wounded, but looking at their bandages and weakly hanging limbs, they certainly weren't in top shape. Well, of course not! Such injuries would almost certainly impact their work lives going forward. Sister, there are wounded, Melkor murmured as he climbed down from his retainer's high beast. The knights had been tended to by their peers and doctors, whereas the commoner soldiers must not have received any care at all. Fear not, Melkor, I shall heal them. You have enough mana left to do that? Melkor asked. Awestruck, given that he wasn't yet attending the academy or compressing his mana, he must have really exerted himself during our prayer for the deceased. I smiled at Melkor and put a hand on his head, which was now far lower than my eye level. The more divine protections one obtains from the gods, the less mana one needs for those things. You are soon to become the High Bishop. Pray for the duchy and its people, and strive to obtain divine protections from as many gods as you can. I will do my best to be like you, sister. You are already so skilled and considerate, Melkor. I do not doubt that you will become a far greater High Bishop than me. I chuckled, then removed my hand from his head and addressed those kneeling. My retainer Daniel has told me of your heroics. You fought valiantly to protect this city. Had the invaders, Wolfendales, made it through the gate, the casualties among the commoners would have been devastating. Oh, definitely. They would have torn apart anybody they ran into. The kneeling soldiers raised their heads and then gawked when they saw me. They hadn't seen her growth spurt yet. The only one who has is her family. And the others. Oh boy. Wait a minute. Has Benno and Let's seen her yet? I can't remember if they have. Let me know. I visited the West Gate last year to retrieve Clarissa, and while wearing the same robe, so everyone here recognized the change in me far better than the commoners who only saw me from afar at the chapel. Dad squinted a little like he was beholding a dazzling light. There was joy and pride in his expression, but also sadness. Oh. I continued, pretending not to notice their shock. It would not be an exaggeration to say that your brave actions yesterday saved our fair city, and at the cost of your own wellness. It would appear. I wish to heal you all so you can continue your fine work. Strike Kolben. I closed my eyes, turned my staff into flute train's staff, and then started to pray. O goddess of healing Hellsmears, of the goddess of water flute train's exalted 12, hear my prayers. Lend me your divine power, and grant me the power to heal those who have been hurt. Play the divine melody, and cast the blissful ripples of your pure divine protection. Even with my eyes closed, I could feel the green light flowing from my staff. The soldiers and my retainers cried out, surprised that I could produce such a large blessing. Rosemine, that's enough, Ferdinand muttered, urgency in his voice. No more, okay? Oops. I stopped channeling mana into my staff, dispelled it with Ruckin, and then slowly opened my eyes. The soldiers who had just moments ago been grimacing in pain undid their bindings, examined the skin underneath, then joyously declared that they were healed. The news came as such a great relief. One of the soldiers stepped forward and then thumped his left breast twice with his right fist. He's saluting. Your consideration is far more than what we deserve, but we thank you for it. As the commander of this gate, allow me to personally express my appreciation. I'd stared at the man bewildered. I'd seen him before, but I didn't know his name. I thought Gunter was the commander here. He has resolved to join you and your personnel when you move. Thus, we have already carried out his handover. Oh, yeah! Okay. Considering what has just happened the past few days, you guys might not be moving as far away as you thought. That made sense. Nearly a year had passed since I'd asked my family to prepare to accompany me, and the temple had also been busy with its handovers. I can only imagine the chaos that would have ensued if the position of commander hadn't been passed on before my departure. To be frank with you, losing Gunter will deal a great blow to Ehrenfest, the commander said. As I am sure you know, he is a talented guard who will protect your personnel without fail. He was clearly worried about my dad, who was leaving his job to travel to another land with his family. It brings me great comfort to know that Gunter is going to be with them. And on that note, I have with me rewards from my adoptive father, the Archduke, to be distributed to those of you who fought to protect your duchy. I called over Melkor and made my announcement. My little brother Melkor is going to succeed me as the High Bishop. I wish to become a High Bishop the people of this duchy can rely on, as my sister was before me. I am looking forward to working with you all, Melkor declared. He then signaled for his retainers to help begin distributing the rewards. As the soldiers received their compensation, I started asking them about yesterday's battle. I'd seen some of them on several occasions during our trip to Haas, and while they were very cautious about how they spoke, they started to relax as they told me tales about Daniel. At third bell, he flew to each of the gates and warned us to strengthen our guard, one said. He did the same for the workers when the ship drew near. If not for his actions, There would have been so many more casualties. He ensured that as many knights as possible were assigned to the West Gate, another added. Our evacuating apprentices who saw him slay those vicious dogs one by one have even started to idolize him. Oh, it's so sweet. Seeing the knights use the same weapons we do also motivated them to train harder. The apprentices had seen the fight from a much better vantage point than their peers on the front line, and the spectacle had excited them out of their minds. They had watched in astonishment as Daniel sent out ordinances, held the line, and protected the soldiers from enemy attacks. I glanced over at our man of the hour and saw him rooted to the spot looking as awkward as ever. Just enjoy it, Daniel. I think you've earned that much. Dad came to join us once he had taken his portion of the reward, and the guards launched into stories about his unbelievable antics. Gunter did more during that battle than any of us. Still, my heart leaped into my throat when I saw him lunge forward to punch one of those dog fey beasts. I thought he was going to get eaten. It was so much like him to keep fighting until all the charms from his family were gone. As his peers all spoke about his recklessness, Dan grinned without an ounce of regret. Lady Rosamund, thank you for providing us with such powerful charms. I apologize for using them all, but I could not play it safe when it came time to defend what mattered to me most. I understand, I said. Your lives are far more important. Like father, like daughter, huh? If even I could see the similarities between Dad and me, that must have been clear as day to Daniel and Ferdinand. They are both wearing hard-to-read expressions. Guys, you can't really get mad about that. Lady Rosamund, Lord Melkor, the new commander, said, a stern look on his face. This might be an inappropriate question, but are we likely to see another fight anytime soon? How much will we need to prepare? The other soldiers tensed up as they awaited our answer. Fear not, Ferdinand interjected, responding in our stead. He took a step toward us, and the tone of our conversation turned on its head. Those who had moments ago been lost in their stories briskly moved into a line standing bolt upright. Your rewards from Ob Arenfest mean the battle has concluded. Moreover, it was Arensbach who attacked us, and they will not be invading again. Whoa, dude. This is Ferdinand we're talking about. He's not going to be any kind of romantic? Ferdinand took my hand and pulled me over to him. He supported me enough that I wouldn't stumble and presented me to all those gathered. During the recent battle, Rosamund stole Arensbach's foundation as an Arenfest Archduke candidate, making her the de facto Arensbach. Once the Zent has given his approval, she will rule over our once dangerous neighbor. It will never invade Arenfest again. Oh, dear. That kind of made me think for a second, because during this whole thing, yes, he's been doing some of this stuff to kind of hide the fact that, one, he's got the Gruterscheit, two, he's not fully recovered yet. But some of the stuff has kind of been, I guess, more reminiscent of how he was kind of acting around Detlinde, but I guess more genuine, considering how Detlinde is. Because he had the freaking fakest smile of all time that Rosamund had seen on him when he was around her. But whatever. Soldiers erupted in cheers, but Melkor and his retainers remained silent, their eyes splitting between Ferdinand and me. My mind went blank as well. Ferdinand! Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Because I actually posted the question, like, what was the decree that Ferdinand was sent to Arensbach for? Because I knew he had to marry someone. I just didn't know if it was specifically Detlinde or someone in the Arensbach family who was going to be the Ob. And my answer was given that it was supposed to be whoever was going to be the Ob. And, well, you guys can kind of probably put two and two together that he realized this, essentially. And he knows that if this continues as he thinks it does, where she becomes officially Ob Arensbach, the decree will still be in effect, where he would still have to marry the one that was going to be the Ob, which would be her. So her bringing up that they're going to try and put him in a political marriage with her isn't kind of phasing him, because he knows it's going to be happening, possibly. But that's depending on what Rosamund says, essentially. Because obviously, she could actually ask them to annul the decree if she wanted to, but yeah. That's why I think he's acting like this, because he knows this is eventually going to happen. We must now leave to begin our rule of No, fuck! He said hour! That's what I'm saying! This is like essentially cementing that he does know this is essentially what I'm talking about. Our rule of Arensbach, O soldiers of Arenfest, I entrust the protection of this city to you all. Preserve its peace so that we may depart without fear. Yes, sir. Ferdinand was clearly used to giving motivational speeches. The soldiers thumped their chests in a vigorous salute. Gunter, he continued, you are to accompany Rosamund's personnel to Ahrensbach before the situation there has completely settled. Protect them no matter the cost. Whoa. He removed one of the charms he was wearing on his arm and proffered it to my dad, who gazed at it before looking between Ferdinand and me. I think he's kind of saying, is this what I think is going on? Oh, wait. Has Thule talked to her mom and Gunter about this yet? Because that whole thing in the fitting with the... Oh no! If she has, he knows what's going on. If she hasn't, this is going to be a freaking funny... That's going to be a funny interaction right there. I want to see that animated. Dad seemed unsure for a moment, but accepted the charm and said, without fail, let us scout the lower city and then return to the temple. Ferdinand said, a surprising remark, as I thought he would take me straight back to the temple. He put me on his high beast as he had done before, and we took to the sky. Our plan was to travel to the south, east, and north gates in that order. We drew a lot of attention as we flew around the city. People pointed up at us from the street or poked their heads out of their windows to watch us. As I took in the nostalgic sight near the south gate, I decided to air my frustrations. Ferdinand, what were you thinking back there? Did you really need to say all that? I told not a single lie, and you asked for this, did you not? You might not have lied, and it certainly is true that I still want to create a library city, but we don't yet know if the Zent will give me his approval. Should you really have revealed such information when we were only there to give out a reward from the Archduke? As much as I wanted things to be smooth sailing from here, we couldn't risk being overly optimistic. Even I understood that, Ferdinand must have too. Yeah. Everyone I speak to tells me I am not fit to be the Zent, I said, and the royal family absolutely needs someone to bring them the Book of Mesnor or the Gruterscheid. It's the same thing, I think. Say I did cast all that aside and choose to remain in Ob. Would the entire country not collapse? I would rather you not get my hopes up when we have so many unresolved problems and not a single solution. As far as I was concerned, it was better to keep one's expectations low. In response to a stern glare from me, Ferdinand simply muttered, since when did you get so pessimistic? Then he started taking us to the East Gate. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. Then get a better grip on reality if you wish for Jürgen Schmidt to have a Zent with the Gruterscheid. Is it really necessary for you to marry a royal or enter the royal family through some other means? Didn't he already discuss this with her while they were getting the country gate closed? I think they already did. Because they were talking about, I think, making a magic tool for the Gruterscheid to give to the royal family, and then they wouldn't have to worry about that. Right? I pursed my lips. Well, no matter who takes the throne, they'll need the Gruterscheid to be a true Zent, won't they? And to obtain the Gruterscheid, one had to be registered with the royal family. Ferdinand gave a slight smile. And what should someone do when they do not have what they want? The answer should come easily to you. Make it. Make it themselves, I ventured. Surely that wasn't the correct response. Ferdinand would never bring up the philosophy that had given him so many headaches in the past. Indeed, I shall take the necessary materials from my workshop and create the Gruterscheid in Ahrensbach. It should not take long. I am halfway done already! You're halfway done already with this! When have you been working on this? We passed over the East Gate. It was only the day after an intense battle, yet the city was already as lively as ever. Ferdinand, I said, a quick look at history should tell you that's a bad idea. The main reason for the royal family's decline and the loss of the Gruterscheid was the requirements for the tool to be passed down from one ruler to the next. Would giving them a new one not result in the same problem? I shall make one that will disappear after a single generation. My aims are simply to get us through this crisis and to return the Zent selection process to a meritocracy. If we wish to do away with royals, then we must make it so that the Zent candidates once again need to obtain the book themselves. You would do well to trust me more. I do trust you as we use the north gate to return to the temple. Ferdinand shook his head and snapped, Get changed, quickly. He pushed me over to Fran and the others. How was the lower city, Monica asked when I was back in my room having come to greet me with Nicola. They had stayed at the temple during our brief trip. Was there a lot of destruction? Did anyone die? I am sure Gil will report on it later, but... As the two attendants helped me out of my robes, I explained that the city had seemed almost entirely untouched. They were relieved to hear the news. Will you also be the High Bishop in Ahrensbach? Nicola asked. What? What? That's new. My eyes widened at the bomb she had just dropped. Why was Nicola asking me that? Of all people. Monica must have noticed my shock because she was quick to explain. Hartman spoke to us all while you were at the gate. He invited Fran and Zom to go with you to Ahrensbach and attend the temple there since you were going to be made the next Ob Ahrensbach following the Archduke Conference. Okay! That would be a good thing, but I don't know. No, I don't know, would she? The two girls had apparently been told they could come along as well, but first they needed to stay here and serve Feline until she came of age. We were told to pack your High Bishop robes with the rest of your luggage. Should we? Yes, go ahead. I turned to Judith and Angelica, who were in the room as guards. Did you two know about this? Hartman told us bits and pieces before lunch when you were with Lord Ferdinand, Judith hesitantly replied. As we speak, Laisletta and Lord Justice are in the castle spreading the same rumors to our guests from Dunkelberger. What the fuck? Are you not going to tell Ferdinand about this? Does he already know? And if so, he hasn't mentioned it. For a scheme this large to have been set in action so quickly, Ferdinand must have been involved. Okay, he was. He was just as gung-ho as Hartman when it came to these things. I suppose that I really was out of touch with reality, yeah. This got dangerous the moment Ferdinand and Hartman decided to team up. Oh, God. The moment they team up, it's definitely chaotic. How was I such a fool? I should have realized something was up when Hartman elected not to accompany me to the gate. And where are Fran and Zom, I asked. They are serving Lord Ferdinand tea in the hall near the front entrance. We are told to take you there once you are changed, so... I stepped out of my High Bishop's chambers with my two attendants. Ferdinand, Hartman, and my other male retainers were waiting for me at the front entrance. Melchior was there too with his retainers in tow. They all wore convinced expressions like something had just been explained to them. Fran and Zom were also present. They looked somewhat uneasy when they saw me approach. Lady Rosewine, Zom said, his tone more peaceful than his face suggested. Lord Ferdinand and Lord Hartman were just telling us you are soon to become Ahrensbach. He asked if we were to go with you so that we could make Ahrensbach's temple like this one. Can I really come with you, Fran asked, looking doubtful. Is it really okay for me to join you and Lord Ferdinand? Fran, these plans are far from set in stone, I said, shooting a glare at everyone who was treating it like a done deal. We still need the Zent's approval. Fran slumped his shoulders in response. Oh, poor guy. He looked a little dejected, so I took his hand in mine and continued. That said, if they were set in stone, of course I would ask you to accompany me. I would want you in whatever temple I move to. I shall await your invitations while training my replacement, Fran said. He and Zom's expressions reminded me of when Lostrom had waited to be invited to Ahrensbach, and at once I was struck with the feeling that I absolutely needed to make this happen. Again with this? Why can't she write her own Knights Highby? She did that with Angelica. Why can't... The fuck? What am I saying? Of course I know why. Ferdinand gestured me over to his high beast, and we took flight once again. I couldn't help but glare at him as I reproachfully spoke his name. Have you finally made some resolve, he scoffed. You've stated your wishes, and it was unsightly to see you act so non-committal toward them. Can I really become an Om when I can't bear to even touch face stones? That issue can be resolved with more determination on your part. Follow your desires. Do not let your fears misguide you. Ferdinand then pushed me forward. As I gazed at the vast sky sprawled out ahead of me, memories of the wishes I'd shared with Lenore and Hannelore flitted through my mind. Oh boy, okay. We are about halfway done, essentially, with the book. I will try and get another one recorded today. If not, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do one for tomorrow. It depends on what happens when I go to the doctor. I'll see y'all next time.